afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us in the world. Thank you so much for joining our webinar focusing on the 2026 CDP updates. If you've been disclosing for CDP for a while now, you know that it changes a little bit every year, sometimes a lot of it. But this year, we're going to be going through all that has changed in the recent updates and what it means for your disclosure. So I'm Preston. I'm from 3R Sustainability's sales team, and I'm also a senior consultant here. And I'm joined by two of my colleagues. I don't know if you want to do a brief introduction, Caesar, and then Josh.
Thank you so much, Preston. Hello, everybody. My name is Cesar Carreño. I am Associate Director for European Operations at 3R Sustainability. Josh?
Thanks, Caesar. Yeah, Josh Schnupp. I'm a Senior Manager at 3R, support a variety of areas, specifically within the assessment space, so CDP, EcoVadis. Excited to present today.
Awesome. Could you go to the next slide, Caesar? Great. So for those of you who are not familiar, we're 3R Sustainability and also Sustainability Assurance Services, and we are a CDP solutions provider. So we've worked with CDP over the last a long time, various years, to support folks that are doing the voluntary assessment. We are a full-service sustainability consulting firm that supports in a variety of areas. So any of these voluntary sustainability disclosures, any customer requests related to the environment or any sustainability topics, we are helping with. We also do things like sustainability reports and support in the packaging space with the emerging regulations, a lot of it in Europe, and similarly in the climate area. So if you're getting greenhouse gas inventory requests, and of course that's part of CDP, that's something we can help with. And then I mentioned Sustainability Assurance Services. That's our sister company that works in verification and assurance. So for those of you who are more advanced in the climate space, you may be looking to get your inventory verified or assured. That does support the CDP score. And I know my colleagues will talk more about that throughout the presentation. Outside of that, we really support with anything and everything related to sustainability. So while we'll be focusing on CDP today, don't hesitate to reach out if any of these other areas are something you need support with. Okay, next slide. We are going to start it off with a poll. So for those of you who have joined us, we want to understand what industry you are from. So there's only a few options here, but our highest, our clientele is typically in manufacturing or consumer goods, and also in financial services and technology. So if you're in those or in other, please participate here so that we can talk specifically to your organization. Okay, colleagues, we have a few in manufacturing and a lot in other. I wish they gave me more options for these polls. You can use the question box in the top right to say a little bit more about your industry if you're interested. And throughout the presentation, please use that question box to answer questions. If it's, urgent, I might stop the presenters, but we'll likely have time at the end to go through all the Q&A. Please use the valuable resources you have in front of you. Okay, give it one more second. We got about 60% voting. For those of you who just joined, we have a poll going to understand what industry you're from. Thanks to those of you trickling in. Okay, I will end and share results. So we have manufacturing, technology, and a lot in other. Great. Caesar, could I do the next slide? Awesome. So for those of you who are just joining us for the first time, you may not know that we have a lot of webinars. So our webinars are always complimentary and on a variety of topics. So our next few are on packaging, so navigating EUDR, PPWR, and EPR, and data-driven traceability. So if you're in the consumer packaged goods space or anything related to packaging, you might want to join that. And on the other side of things, LEED v5. So the new green building standard is just rolling out, and we'll have a webinar outlining what's new there and what's due next. If you've enrolled or registered for this webinar, you'll get automatically enrolled in our newsletter so you can see all of the things we have going on. But if you need to share this along, there's a QR code at the bottom if any of your colleagues maybe want to join that mailing list as well. Next slide. Great, and this is an exciting offering. So for those of you on the call today, we want to offer a complimentary CDP consultation. So if you've submitted a CDP in the past and you have sort of a download of your previous submission, or if you're submitting for the first time and curious to see where you might need to improve upon or shift your disclosure to get a better score, this is an opportunity to talk to our experts and really get insights that are confidential and practical. So you can use this QR code here to sign up, and we will also flash this at the end of the presentation during the Q&A. I'll leave this up for a little bit longer, just in case anyone's trying to get their devices. And if not, Josh's email is listed here, and feel free to reach out. We can always do it that way. Okay, I think we can move along. Poll number 2. Have you reported to CDP before, or is this your first time? This webinar is actually the second one in the series, so feel free to go back. All of our recordings are published on 3R's website. We were so surprised last time. A lot of people, it was their first time reporting, and they were coming to kind of understand CDP. This one's a bit more in the weeds, so it makes sense. Right now, 100 people have reported to CDP before, 100% of people. Awesome, thanks for your participation here. Okay, so my colleagues, people know CDPs. They're not newbies, they're deep in it. They have reported before. We got almost 100% of people attending saying that they've reported before. Great, thank you. That's helpful for how we'll kind of frame the rest of the session. Awesome, thanks for your participation there. And before I hand it off, if you could go to the next slide. Just want to remind you in the upper right-hand corner to please use the question feature and submit a question. Like I said, we'll have some time at the end, but if anything's too specific or complicated, we'll reach out afterwards and answer your question via email. So feel free to use that. And like I said, wonderful resources here. 2 folks that know a lot about CDP, and you don't have to wait in a help desk line. So use our Q&A. All right, I will hand it over. Thank you all for listening to housekeeping, and I'll be back at the end.
Thanks, Preston. Appreciate it. So yeah, I just wanted to start off going through a little bit of an agenda here. What we'll be focusing on. I'll start us out with a summary of key changes, and then hand it to Caesar to go over LSRS and some more of the climate questionnaire specific changes. And then I'll come back towards the end and talk about how to best prepare for the 2026 disclosure cycle and some recommendations for how to optimize your assessment. Okay, so a summary of the key changes. I'll run through these quickly, and then there'll be quite a bit more information as we go throughout this presentation. But the first one to note is that CDP has introduced ocean questions for the first time in 2026. There have been improvements and additions to plastic disclosures, as well as further alignment with key standards and frameworks such as TNFD and IFRS. And then the climate questionnaire updates. So there's some general updates in the approach this year. And then also, as previously mentioned, the LSRS from the Greenhouse Gas Protocol is going to be a bit of a change that you'll see. And we'll get into all those here shortly. So Caesar, if you can go to the next slide, we'll start with the oceans update. Okay, so here, CDP really added in the ocean questions due to market demand. Many of the requesting customers and kind of financial institutions were looking for more information, more data related to ocean. So that's really the driver here on why this was included. It is an opt-in set of disclosures in 2026 where all full corporate questionnaire respondents will have the ability to respond to the ocean disclosures, but it will not be scored in 2026. So that's allowing organizations some time to set up the data collection and disclosure responses. So you can see on the right side here what the structure, what the layout of these questions are going to be. It's a little bit slimmed down compared to, say, climate or water. You can see there's 6 modules here, set up very similarly, but just a condensed version of what you're already accustomed to. Next slide. And then talking on some of the improvements and additions to the plastic disclosures. So very similar to ocean. This is opt-in as part of the full corporate questionnaire. And similarly, this will not be scored in 2026. But you'll see here on the right side, this is actually a screenshot from CDP themselves of what the new and modified questions will include. So you can see there's an update to the plastic related targets, packaging formats there, as well as additional metric requests noted. So I'll just leave that up on the screen there for a second for you to take a peek at what some of those changes will be. Okay, I'm gonna head to the next slide. And then, as previously mentioned, there is this increased emphasis and focus on alignment with global international standards such as TNFD and IFRS. So CDP really sees TNFD as foundational, specifically in the nature-related reporting. So it's noted there. And then expanding the guidance for risk disclosure, board oversight, and again, aligning all of those different criteria and points to the TNFD recommendations. So I think those are the main components there. In short, there's not major changes across the TNFD and IFRS alignment. This is already something that CDP has been focusing on for several years. It's just small changes to continue that enhancement, I would say. Okay, the next slide. And I'll hand it to you, Caesar.
Yeah, thank you so much, Josh. And yes, just complementing what Josh has been presenting, this is a brief overview of the actual changes that have occurred for the climate change module and what has that been included or not. But first, I would like to explain with this table the main differences on how the updates have occurred. And there is a classification there. No? So you have additional guidance, minor change, modified question, modified guidance, new questions, and revised question dependency. All of them have either some impact or some mid-size impact within the questionnaire. Important to highlight that for CDP, for the 2026 reporting cycle, changes were more targeted. So there is not a full redesign. So yeah, it remains a score team, but as just mentioned, just adapting certain topics here and there based on opt-ins alternatives. No, so the most important part of this table, which I'm presenting here for you to take a look, is for you to understand that some changes that occur during the questionnaire does not necessarily mean that this impacts, for example, that the question has more or less scoring or is more important than any other. It's just, for example, for additional guidance, it's additional explanations, clarifications, because user communicator that they didn't understand the question. For minor changes, it's just wording, for instance. Modified questions, they change the question, but they most likely obtain the same result. In modified guidance is the supporting instructions, which are not necessarily the questions, it is the text below the question. And of course, new questions, there are completely new questions which are added to the questionnaire. No? And then the revised question dependency means that what are the follow-up questions once you answer a root questions, for instance, so which other questions appear on it. No? This being said, within the climate change module, there are some specific changes, and you can see here represented in percentage. So as you can see, for example, the light blue that represents minor changes in questions, that 34%, 38% is modified questions. The very light green is modified guidance with 15%. And of course, new questions is only 4% of the total. No? So no major changes. So not necessarily additional information to be reported, unless you, for instance, choose the opt-in questions for ocean, for instance. But by default, no major changes on the general questions. No? And of course, just like I mentioned, there have been there are two root questions added, are two depending questions on the answer of the questions that I have mentioned. And this is because CDP wanted to align to the GHG protocol for the land sectors and renewable standard, and just to showcase the relevance of this specific sector within your value chain as well, most likely for agricultural products or the food sector as well, and the strategies that your organization has. Again, these questions are not necessarily quantitative, they're more qualitative than anything. No? Additional information on what changes have occurred. Important to highlight that we are focusing on climate change, and this is excluding water and forest. Why climate change? Because it's the most relevant or more material questionnaire, and it's cross-cutting across all of the type of industries. No? So as you can see, the updates that have been made according to the different modules, and you can see that the environmental performance climate change has the most changes and edits, 61. No? While the ones that have the less changes and edits is the identification and assessment of management of dependencies, impact, risk, and opportunity. This showcases that the most used module, of course, is the one that will be impacted by minor changes, new questions, additional guidance, modified questions, and dependencies. But then again, as you can see, it's not overly dramatic over any other module, and it's not necessarily overly dramatic for the climate change module. It's only two questions and two dependable questions based on the answers that you will see. So do not expect a lot of changes on this front, but more guidance and information to allow you to provide clearer answers. Now, what is happening within the climate change updates? Just like I mentioned, I will guide you through the specific questions that were included there. So the climate change module is aligning more and more to the GHG protocol land sector renewable standards and guidance. So what is this specific protocol? Is recommendations to account and report emissions, CO2 removals, and other relevant metrics. This is very similar to what ISO 40064 does, but in ISO is called SSR, Sink, Source, and Reservoirs, what the GHG protocol calls it emissions, CO2 removals, and other relevant metrics. No? These reflect anthropogenic emissions in the land sector, as well as the other CO2 removal technologies in this specific questionnaire. No? CDP will not expect organizations to report quantitative data in alignment with the new standard, but you will be able to indicate whether your land sector activities and removals are material to your organization. No? But you will not be asked to disclose emissions or removals. Remember, no numbers, at least on these questions. Chances are you might need to further clarify these when you provide description of your transition plan or your strategy for emission reductions. No? So, new question number 1, 7.12. Does your organization have significant land sector activities in its operation or value chain? Remember, again, is qualitative, not quantitative, so it's more like a yes or no. And how material is it? Which specific sector? which type of a specific product within the value chain, etc., etc. So will allow you to indicate the relevance of the land sector emissions and removal for your organization, as long as it's aligned with the land sector and removal standard. No? So based on the selections on these questions, you may be presented with question 7.12.1, which is the one that I'm going to show you afterwards, which allows you to report specific subcategories of this standard, which one is relevant and which one do you calculate. Again, it's a yes or no exercise and a multiple choice alternative. So completing the reporting of these emissions, not enabled on CDP 2026 reporting cycle, so no table to complete. No? So let's say that you already tick the specific answers on this question 7.12 that will allow you to be presented with the next questions, the next new question, which is 7.12.1, which of course allows you to identify subsectors which are relevant to your organization. No? These questions will only appear if you select no. These activities include those related to agricultural lands in 7.12. No? And of course, in the column, indicate if these activities are only related to forest lands and non-productive forest lands. Again, just to align, and as long as it's aligned to the GHG protocol land sector and removal standard. No? So the evaluation for for the scope of the two, it has two components. No, whether you are accounting a subcategory which is relevant to your business, or whether you have calculated the data in that specific category. Again, yes, no, relevant, yes, no, which subcategory this. That's pretty much it. There should be no hurdle or barrier to answer this question. You don't need to quantify anything. So chances are a lot of you will have the opportunity to answer this correctly and have this question completed, and maybe gain some points out of that. No? Updates on the questionnaire, again, on the climate change focus, the type of updates that have happened only in the climate change model for environmental performance. As you can see, the more changes that happened were in modified questions. There were 22 modified questions, 14 modified guidance on questions, 14 minor changes, 3 additional guidance, 4 new questions, 4 revised questions dependency. It's additional information with matches what I already presented before in percentage for the climate change module. No? Now let's keep on moving forward, and I will be able to present what is the additional questions, no, the additional new questions. New question number 3, which is climate change. 7.13. This is immediately straight away after the previous 2 new questions, and this is related on how do you have removals or capture of CO2, and is managed through geologic storage, no, or if you have done so in the previous years, no. So it will allow you the opportunity to share if you implement technology that allows you to remove or capture CO2 with geologic storage, no, in line with the GHG protocol land sector and removal standard. Again, following the same format, following the same principle, based on what you answer or tick on the question, it will present you with the additional question, complementary question, which is 7.13.1. Same concept, represented subcategories, what is the relevant, is it calculated or not, etc., etc. No, again, no table, no quantitative information is required, yes or no exercise. Are you measuring yes or no? Which category, subcategory, this? Is it material for your organization? Yes, no. That's pretty much it. And then, of course, this mobilizes you to the new question number 4, which is which of the following removals category are relevant to your organization in the reporting year, in this case, 2025, which is reporting in 2026. No, you need to, again, highlight which subcategories apply to. Have you monitored, calculated, yes or no, and how material is for your organization. That's pretty much it. That's the extent of the information required by the new questions within the climate change model for environmental performance for CDP for the 2026 cycle. I will be very happy to answer your questions as long as you put them on the Q&A box towards the end of the session. Yeah, moving to the next section, Josh.
Yes, great. Thank you, Caesar. If you could jump to the next slide, talk through some scoring impacts. So I think one of the biggest takeaways from me from a scoring methodology perspective is it's pretty minimal with the updates in 2026. Caesar noted there were quite a few changes, but many of them were minor, just slightly modified questions. So from a scoring perspective, I really not too many noteworthy points here. And just to highlight that further, what you're seeing on the screen, the scoring is still be based on the primary sector assignment. You will still receive separate scores for each of the different themes: climate change, forest, water security. As previously noted, plastics and oceans are not being scored in 2026. Yeah, next slide. On that. And then if you attended our previous webinar last month, this is going to look very familiar to you, but I wanted to make sure to incorporate some recommendations for this group on how you can really try to optimize your submission and maximize your scoring potential. So some of the key principles here is always provide clear rationale on why decisions were made, and include strong explanations, as well as examples with timelines. So on the right side here, you can see some examples of what a weak response would look like versus a strong response. So you don't want to be incomplete with your responses, saying we have a transition plan, whereas if you could explain what the transition plan is, whether it's public or private, is it aligned with climate science? What are the KPIs associated with that? How are you progressing? What are the timelines to implementing the initiatives that you have planned? So being as specific as possible is really the big recommendation there. You can jump to the next slide. And then one area that I think many of our clients are maybe not fully aware of when they first start working with us is this button on the right side here. I like to highlight that as this is the additional information button, and it gives you a lot of information, a lot of clarity on what the intent of the question is to make sure that your response is meeting it, as well as any definitions or expectations that may be unclear from the question itself. A lot of detail. And then I think the most important component is the scoring methodology for each of the questions. So you can see when a question is scored, how many points it's worth, and that can give you a sense of prioritization and how you can kind of use CDP as a platform for improvement long term. So if you see something is worth a lot of points and you're really emphasizing score improvement, that could be something to prioritize in your longer term improvements, your strategy, etc. And then also something we talked a lot about in the last webinar is the essential criteria. So if you're unaware of the essential criteria, is essentially different requirements the CDP has put in place to meet certain scoring thresholds. The A scoring threshold is really the most commonly thought of for the essential criteria, but there is a set of points requirements that you need to have to be eligible for that A score, but it also is important for B, C as well. So if that's of interest, be sure to check out that last webinar. A lot of good detail and information provided there. Okay, head to the next slide. And then I'll round this out with some key takeaways, and then I'll share the CDP timeline for this year. So some of the key takeaways for me, there were notable updates. It's about 38% of the climate questions were modified. There's the 4 new questions that Caesar went through. We also see the addition of oceans. So there are notable updates to be aware of, and I hope this webinar provided you some of that information to continue exploring. One of those is the Greenhouse Gas Protocol LSRS inclusion, which I think Caesar did a really nice job of outlining what's changing in regards to that. Ocean and plastics, we talked on that one. Those are opt-in disclosures, and again, not scored this year. And then lastly, the scoring quality and essential criteria are still driving the results. So if you're looking to improve, definitely focus on the quality of your responses, and also be sure that you understand the essential criteria and that you are meeting the essential criteria of the score that you're looking to achieve. And then if we head into the next slide here, this is just an outline of the timeline. So we had a big update last week, which is really what started out this webinar of what these updates were for 2026. So you now have access to the questionnaire and guidance for the 2026 disclosure cycle. And then we can really be expecting to see your requests are going to start coming out from your requesting companies. You'll see those pop up in your emails and in the CDP portal. And then the response window will open in the middle of June. So that's when you can really dive in and start getting your responses in for this year. Okay, and then we'll open it up for some Q&A. And Preston, I'll invite you back to the screen here. So if there's any questions that came through the chat, we're happy to answer those.
So, excuse me. No questions yet, but a good handful of people on the line. So let's see if anyone comes in. And in the meantime, here's that QR code again for the consultations. Oh, looks like that side got a little wonky. I have a question. Do either of you know if the questions are carrying over answers from last year, or if the edited ones are blank again? I haven't been able to check yet.
Yeah, so we're going to see a lot better continuity this year compared to, say, 2 years ago. I know 2 years ago, there was a lot of transition from a different system, from the old system into the new system. But that's been a real priority of CDP to maintain continuity over these past couple of years, ease some of that friction that they saw 2 years ago. So you could expect to see a lot of carryover from previous years this year.
Cool. So that 38% number shouldn't scare me that those will all be blank, or we're not sure.
Yeah, you should see a good carryover there because the modifications are going to be, for the most part, fairly minor. Of course, with the new questions, be new disclosures. But yeah, it shouldn't be this update. The updates this year, I think, is what I would like to share with this is don't be concerned about the updates this year as much as the past. So a lot of continuity.
Warms my heart. For those of you who said they've reported in the past, they'll remember the changes were challenging a few years back. I like to celebrate the deadline. I think September, mid-September, always have a little celebration for the sustainability professionals that get it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, no questions, everyone. This is really an opportunity. Have you ever had to stand in line at the virtual help desk? It's painful. Not needed here. You could ask your questions to these two. Caesar, Josh, any pontification while we wait, and then if not, we can just wrap a bit early.
No, nothing from my end, but just to complement what Josh was mentioning, I think in CDP there is the opportunity to generate what was called the evidence package, if I'm not mistaken, that can be carried into specific modules, for example, governance, etc., because it doesn't change from one year to the other, most likely. So there's a good opportunity for companies to see how to make the best use of this feature once they master it, of course, because you need to learn how to do it, how to be able to transfer it towards the next submission cycle. So yeah, there are some opportunities there as well, and with the alignment with the different frameworks like the TNFD and SBTN, and of course the new version of the GHG protocol for land emissions and removals. Yeah, the opportunities there to become more and more transparent.
Great. Thanks. I flashed SharePoint. I'll pull up in case anyone needs support. And looks like someone asked about the presentation being shared. Yeah, the recording of the session will be shared to attendees.
Feel free to answer the poll as well. If you need support, we'll be very happy to speak to you.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for joining, and we'll reach out and feel free to respond if you or do that CDP complimentary consultation survey, and we'll follow up. Thanks again for joining.
Thanks all.
Thank you, everybody.